This week on Talking Pictures, I sit down with Tim Blake Nelson. We examine his diverse career in film, his life in New York City, his thoughts on acting, and how he became an actor in the first place. Tim is a man who wears many hats, and we not only discuss his upcoming movie, but his latest entertaining novel as well. We've got all that in a fascinating and revealing interview coming up. I'm Neil Rosen, and welcome to Talking Pictures. You know actor Tim Blake Nelson from such acclaimed movies as the Coen Brothers' Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And The Legend of Buster Scruggs, and from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, The Incredible Hulk and Captain America. A true Renaissance man, he's also a director, producer, and a writer. His latest, soon-to-be-released movie was filmed on location in Montauk, New York.
Taste the rainbow.
It's based on a true story, and it's called On the End.
This is a repair business?
Full-service auto repair shop and personal abode.
His latest novel is a real good one, and it's called Superhero.
Superhero tells the story of the making of a $160 million budgeted superhero movie from the point of view of the head of the studio, the lead actor, the lead actor's producer wife, the director of photography of the movie, one of the drivers on the movie, so a teamster, and the line producer, along with a few other characters. And so you get this multifaceted look at how these movies are made with a combination of conflicting agendas and what comes out on the other end. And it uses that to explore issues in our broader culture, from Black Lives Matter to the Me Too movement to American hegemony around the world. And it looks at the superhero movie as this microcosm for more universal cultural issues.
Your last book, City of Blows and Superhero, both deal with Hollywood in a different way. What is it about Hollywood, when you're writing a book, that you want to return to this particular, although this is different, you want to return to that subject matter?
Well, first of all, it's a world with which I'm very familiar, so you're supposed to write about what you know. Not that I didn't also do research to deepen my understanding, but it's a world with which I am intimately familiar. And I also think that any microcosmic world is often a reflection or a small iteration of what the broader culture is. And so I use a world that I really know and a culture that I really know to look at larger, more universal issues. There's nothing in the novel that I didn't either experience firsthand or was told about by a very reliable source or sources who experienced the actions firsthand. So while this novel can certainly be construed as a biting satire, on another level it really isn't, because there is truth in every single interaction and action that occurs in the novel. There's nothing in there that didn't happen on some set or other.
So it was probably easier to write than the first book, I would assume, or maybe not.
Well, the same is true about the first novel. I guess what made this one easier to write is that City of Blows is far more critical of Hollywood and explores the venality of the people who go out to Hollywood and try to succeed. Whereas this novel, Superhero, is very much about my love of movies and my love of the process of making movies, even though the actions of some of the characters can be described as self-absorbed, corrupt, dishonest. They're always doing it in service of pursuing great filmmaking.
I'm moving on now to On the End. Okay?
Great.
Such a great movie.
Because only a serial killer would live like that.
All right, I get it. I live in the big swinging Hamptons, and you figured you just move right in. Well, surprise, surprise. Not the beach house you were expecting, huh? I'm just a poor, dirty loser mechanic.
Were you familiar, this is a true story, were you familiar with this gentleman who you play in the movie? Were you familiar with his story? Or did you just have to delve into research? And did you get a chance, he died recently this year, and I know the movie was made before he died. Did you get a chance to talk to him? And is that part of your process? Some people don't want to talk to the real person.
No, I absolutely got to know Tom Ferreira. I didn't know of his story. I owe all of that to the film's writer and director, Ari Selinger. This script was brought to me, frankly, as happens in this industry. I think I was probably the third or fourth person they approached to play the role. I was captivated from the first page by the story of this homeowner in Montauk through on land that had been in his family for generations, who was being harassed off his property because he had an auto repair shop that was making a lot of noise and was an eyesore to the neighbors and was going to threaten property values.
But nobody bothered this family that had the house for generations.
Right.
Until the area became a desirable, wealthy area, which Montauk really was more of a blue-collar area as opposed to the Tony Hamptons part of it. And yeah, which I found very interesting. You know, it was like a David versus Goliath story.
Absolutely. And I'm always looking for stories as an actor that might be about something very specific. It's kind of like what I was talking about with a novel, but that have just broader significance or ramifications in the culture universally. And so this was a story about wealth disparity. And this was a guy making ends meet, a blue-collar guy with an auto repair shop on some prime real estate who was being harassed by people who wanted their homes their summer homes to become ever more valuable as assets. So when I read this script, I had to play this part. And then I spent a good deal of time with Tom, including staying over at his house and sharing a little bit of his life with him and allowing him as a character to seep into me. And frankly, had I not had that access, I don't think I would have played the role, because it would have felt, I would have felt ill-equipped without that kind of first-hand research.
Did you connect with this gentleman in On the End?
I absolutely did. And I got to tell you, what's interesting about Ari's script is that the people who harass Tom Ferreira have a legitimate point of view, because they're spending, it was obviously their choice, but millions of dollars to develop this property, these properties on this one road. And this guy is working on cars in the front yard every day, and their investment and their beautiful home and their beachfront property is imperiled or at least denigrated by the presence of this guy and
all the cars,
exhaust, and so if you're playing one of those characters, that's your point of view in a good script, which Ari wrote. And so you kind of think, well, they have a point. But then also, my character has a point. Hey, I'm just living my life here that I've been living for the last several decades. And suddenly you decide this is valuable beachfront property. That's your problem. Let me live my life. This is
got no money
America.
to pay your medical
I'm
bills.
a private citizen and a property owner, and I have rights. And you can't infringe on those rights, which are protected by the law. And so I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and that you chose to buy this property is that was your choice. And then you suddenly have a really interesting film that isn't agitprop. It's actually a legitimate exploration of conflicting forces in a community that end up violating someone's rights.
How long was the shoot on this? I mean, it's an indie film, and it was Ari's first feature film, if I'm not mistaken. And how different is it? And do you have a preference, either shooting a small indie, even though this was on location in a beautiful area, as opposed to you've been on those $200 million sets? It's kind of a different experience.
That's the one drawback of doing indie films, is that you have insufficient time really to tell the story in the best way possible. Now, sometimes those constraints make for more interesting shots and a grittier look, and that's great. But really, on a movie like Ari's film, which I think we shot in 20 days, or this movie I did, Bang Bang, with Vincent Grashaw, that we shot in 17 days, or the movie I just wrote and directed, The Life and Deaths of Wilson Shedd, we only had 28 days with over 200 scenes. And when you don't have enough time and stuff is rushed, you can't curate the light, you can't get enough takes to curate the performance editorially. There's insufficient coverage so that you don't really get the scene exactly as you'd like to get it as an actor or director, and that can be frustrating. Whereas on bigger budget films, you'll have 80 days to shoot, or 60 days, or even 40 days. But otherwise, you prefer doing the indie films because the material's usually better and more interesting. If you're an actor like me, you're going to get a bigger role because they'll give you the lead in a lower budget movie, whereas on a $160 million movie, it's unlikely that's going to happen with a character actor. That's going to be Anthony Mackie or Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt. And I'm going to be in an interesting role, but usually in tertiary support.
At what point did you decide that you wanted to go into show business? And did it start with acting? You said writing a novel was a dream of yours, but you began in acting. I know you went to Juilliard ultimately. When did you know that this is what you wanted to do, and where did that come from, and how early?
I had visions or delusions of becoming an actor when I was in high school, but I was growing up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I had no family in the business or even close to the business. So when I went to college, I left that behind, and I was going to be a classicist. So I went to college and studied Latin and ancient civilizations and ancient philosophy. But in college, just as an extracurricular pursuit, with the encouragement of all people, from of all people, my mother, I started acting again. And by junior year of college, I decided I wanted to go to grad school and pursue acting and not become a classicist. And I was fortunate enough to get into Juilliard and went there and did their 4-year training program and matriculated out into the real world and started pursuing it.
Was it tough to break in at first? I mean, can you talk about your early days when you were in New York, getting a break?
It was tough and it wasn't tough. I remember Juilliard works hard to set you up in the business. It's an extraordinary school, and I'm so grateful to have gone there And so for 10 years, I constantly got work from the moment I left school, but it was always off-Broadway. And the pay scale is, I mean, it's barely a subsistence living. But I got commercials also, usually a commercial or two a year, and maybe a one-scene part in a TV show or a movie a year. And so I struggled along, but I always had work. I always had something to do. It just wasn't, I wasn't making any money at it. And then, so in that sense, I struggled, but I didn't struggle at all creatively because I was doing plays by really great playwrights in great off-Broadway venues and always working. But it wasn't until Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which was 10 years after I got out of drama school, that I really started to have what could be called a successful career in all respects.
I had a friend named Ramblin' Bob. He used to steal, gamble, and rob. He thought he was the smartest guy around.
How'd the Coen Brothers find you? Did they see one of your off-Broadway plays, or?
No. It was through an organization in the city called the 52nd Street Project that was founded by a guy named Willie Reale, which does theater with imperiled kids in Hell's Kitchen, not to create theater artists, but to increase self-esteem and to teach discipline, responsibility, and also, frankly, to give kids a home away from home when the family home was maybe unstable or in straitened circumstances. And Frances McDormand, Joel Coen's wife, was also a volunteer there. And so my wife and I got to know Fran and Joel, and Joel and I hit it off, and he just believed, for whatever reason, that I would be interesting in this part. And at that point, I was auditioning for any role, even a one-scene role I would have to read for. And he just called me up and said, I want you to play this lead role. I didn't even have to read for it.
Wow.
And it changed my life.
I want to talk a little bit about this film you said that you made, and I read a little bit about it that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, it's called The Life and Deaths of Wilson Shedd. It stars Amanda Seyfried and Scoot McNairy. I'm in it as well, along with Wunmi Mosaku and some other wonderful actors. And it tells the story of a relationship that strikes up between a teacher in a prison and a guy who's in her class who's been incarcerated for life for murder. And she helps him get out of prison. And some very bad stuff happens as a result of that. And so it's about the ramifications of this interaction between these two people.
I go to a lot of film festivals, and I feel bad sometimes for these directors or writers, and they get the movie in the festival, but then they can't get distribution, and it takes them so long. I mean, how hard is it to get an independent film made and get the financing? And then even when you get the film made, then you got to find a distribution outlet. And now theaters are kind of like going away. So, you know, you make streaming deals and stuff. I mean, how tough is the process these days? It's not, you know, it's not what it was, it's not what it was 10 years ago. It wasn't even, you know, you want to go back 30 years ago, it was a whole different process, you know.
So in the 1990s, when I started making films as a writer-director, and in the early 2000s, the formula was pretty simple. You had your script, you attached one or two stars, and then you had yourself as a director. You took that package and you had a foreign sales company give you reliable numbers for how much that package would be worth around the world. outside of the United States and Canada, North America. And that really became your budget. But because America was making more movies than anybody else in the world, and because the distribution of those movies was only on television and in movie theaters in foreign territories, those numbers were pretty robust and they were pretty reliable. And so you could raise, if you had, let's just say for my third movie, a fourth movie, Leaves of Grass, I had Edward Norton in the lead. And it was a comic thriller. And so based on foreign sales numbers, we were able to raise about $8 million to get that movie made. And then selling it in North America became the profit for the company that financed the movie. It's completely gone, that market.
What's the path now?
The path now, and I'll just say the reason it's gone is because of streaming. And also there are better film industries, more robust film industries in all those territories around the world. And those territories also have fewer theaters and less interest in putting American content on local television there to those countries. The way you get these movies financed now is you make them for a lot less money, which means that you don't have money to pay your stars if they want a little bit of money for doing your indie film. And so you don't get those stars, but also the stars who can make a movie financeable are fewer and fewer. It used to be maybe there were 40 men, and you could choose between, those 40 to make your movie financeable. Now it's about 10.
So it's really tough. I mean, and movie theaters are going away.
Yeah, there's absolutely no substitute for seeing a movie in a movie theater. So until we can figure out, as filmmakers and as theater owners, how to make those movies work in theaters so that then their ancillary life or their life after theaters and streaming services and on premium cable make money, then the studios and financiers aren't going to be interested in financing them because they're going to lose money. So we have to figure that out as filmmakers, and the theater experience has to be unique so that people want to go. And then finally, people need to go to movie theaters.
When you did Buster Scruggs, I heard your son taught you how to play the guitar. That's true?
Yes.
You never played at all? You knew nothing about it?
My son, Henry, Joel and Ethan sat me down for breakfast about 6 months before we were supposed to start shooting. And they said, you're going to need to learn to do a lot of pistol tricks. And it's going to take you months to get where we need you to get. And we're going to set you up with a guy who will train you. And we'll get you guns to work with in the house. So they did that. And then they also said, you're going to need to ride a horse and play the guitar and sing at the same time. And what
was your
can ride a
reaction to
horse. I can ride a horse, and I know that it's really, that's one thing, to hit your mark, et cetera, on a horse for a movie. But to play the guitar, which takes two hands, so you're going to have to use your legs to orient the horse. That was going to be tough since I'd never picked up a guitar in my life. So I called my son, Henry, who's in this wonderful band, Early Worm, and he's a jazz guitar player and an indie rock guitar player, and said, you got to teach me. And he did, and I worked for several hours a day, 7 days a week, and learned to play the guitar to do the role of Buster Scruggs.
Well, would you be kind enough to play us out over the credits with a little something?
I will try, and I'll see if I can pass muster.
We have a beautiful Taylor guitar for you, and I'll bring it over to you. Somebody, let me grab it. Tim Blake Nelson, who learned the guitar for Buster Scruggs. On the End is hopefully coming to the theaters soon. Please watch. I will hold this up again. Please take a read to Superhero. It's a terrific book. And this Renaissance man is going to play us out. Thank you for spending time with me today. Really appreciate it on Talking Pictures.
That was a little better.
That was good.